Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Say hello, Hoyle.
No, I refuse. You're fucked.
Okay. Welcome to the global launch Pokemon Pocket TCG tier list, where I'm going to go through the top decks at the moment. No, the top decks at global launch. And yeah, we're going to start at the top and then work our way through to the bottom. So these are the decks that you're most likely going to encounter when you go on ladder, or if you decide to play in tournaments. And yeah, basically the ones you're going to want to invest in as well.
And I'm just going to point out where Joe's opinions are wrong because he's stupid.
Yeah, so that's a good point. In my opinion, why listen to me? That is a very good question. Why listen to me? Well, I've been playing the game since the soft launch in New Zealand, quote unquote New Zealand. But Hoyle's been playing the real, actual card game for how long now? How long now? Tell us.
13 years.
And what are some of your best results?
So I have multiple League Cup wins. I have a top 32 at regionals, and I was 18 championship points short of a World's Invite in 2018.
Nice. So as you can see, Hoyle is the Pokemon master here. I just started playing TCG with the soft launch. Well, I did play the Game Boy version, but obviously that can't really compare. But yeah, from the month playing the game, I've definitely gained a lot of experience, and I kind of know now the mechanics and how each deck works. Been able to get my hand on most of them. With just a month's investment, completely free to play, I've got most of the meta deck. Well, not most, but a decent chunk.
I think you've got about half of the relevant decks able to be built.
Yeah, pretty much, and that's just a month as well, so it's pretty good.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's not drag this on anymore, and let's jump right into the tier list. So, at the moment, the undisputed top deck in the game is Pikachu EX.
Yeah.
So Pikachu EX, you compare it up, there are several variants. You've got Pikachu EX with Zapdos, which is quite common. You've got Pikachu, I don't know why Electrode's here. It's normally these three, Pikachu, Zapdos and Electrode, or Pikachu and Raichu.
Well, there's the Surge build that uses Raichu and is it Magneton?
Yeah, these two. So you got, let's bring these up here. So you've got that one with the Magneton build. So that build does very well in the mirror because obviously Raichu can do 140 damage in one go. So that one shots your enemy, like the opponent's Pikachu EX. But yeah, all the variants are pretty good. So I can't really see any major difference between them. Hoyle, care to tell everyone what it is that makes Pikachu EX so good?
So Pikachu has a high damage output for a low cost. It's just 2 energy attachments. It's a basic Pokemon, so you don't have to spend turns digging, finding your evolution pieces. You just have Pikachu in play, you start attaching energy, and it can just be attacking very quickly. All you have to do is fill your bench with electric Pokemon, which you can run a decent number of basics, have the Pokeball to find them. You can kind of keep your bench filled, which means that the 30 times the number of electric Pokemon on your bench is hitting 90 very easily.
Yeah, pretty much. It's basically just got everything going for it. It doesn't require evolving anything. You can search it with Pokeball. It's fast. It hits for a lot of damage. It doesn't rely on coin flips, which is important. We'll talk about coin flips later on.
Yeah.
It's just,
and that 90 damage that we can get to quite easily will 2-hit KO everything in the format apart from I think it's Blastoise and Venusaur EXs, which are 190.
Yeah, pretty much.
And when you can just sort of 2-hit KO everything when everything else will probably be looking to 2-hit KO you, but you're doing it faster, is essentially very good.
Yeah, that's basically the gist of it. Pikachu EX is just does what it does very, very quickly, because most of the other decks they need time to set up. So I forgot to mention there's also the Zeb Striker variant, which I think is pretty cool because you can snipe bench Pokemon.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically any of the Pikachu EX decks are good. I'm just going to get rid of these now to save up space. Let's leave these two, Pikachu EX and Zapdos EX. I honestly think Zapdos isn't that great of a card in Pikachu EX. I think the only use it serves is as something to take hits, and that's pretty much it.
So it's a big HP basic, so it's not easily just knocked out by anything that can do sort of 60 damage. And it sort of gives you time to, find the Pikachu, get it charged up, etc. And it's got one energy attack for an amount of damage. It's not a good amount of damage, but means you're still technically attacking.
Yeah, it's that's the chip. Okay, so there you go. Pikachu EX is the best deck. It actually won the tournament that was hosted last Saturday, which had like 200 plus entrants. And it also won another tournament before that. I think it won the first one they hosted. So it's a very good deck. Next up, we've got Mewtwo EX and Gardevoir. So, well, the next two entrants, they're not going to be ordered because I think it's... Well, actually, you know what? I think Starmie might actually be slightly more consistent than Mewtwo. So let's talk about Starmie first. It's close. It's close.
Yeah, it's you have less pieces to find, and the chance of Misty, I think, sort of ups the number of games where it's going off.
Yeah. So that's why I think Starmie and Articuno is just ever so slightly better than Mewtwo.
Main problem with saying Starmie Articuno is better than Mewtwo is the electric weakness.
Yeah. So
I think the fact that it's just going to have a horrid time against Pikachu.
Yeah, that actually
always can hold it back.
It explains why there's not that many Starmie or water decks in general in tournaments, because I think in the first one there was more, but then they've kind of been dropping off because people realised it's almost impossible to beat a Pikachu EX deck, and because there's so many of them, people are then just deciding to play Mewtwo because it's not as one-sided. But still, Starmie EX on its own is very good.
Yeah, it's part of the thing we were saying with the Pikachu of, your two-hit KOing everything that's trying to two-hit KO you that hasn't got as quite a quicker setup. Starmie has 2 energy attack for 90, which is kind of the same as Pikachu, but it's a stage 1. You have to fight the Starmie, and you've got that risk that the Staryu can just be taken off the board instantly.
Yeah.
It's just that sort of way of visualizing the speed of a deck.
Yeah. And the good thing about Starmie is, well, it just deals the same amount of damage as Pikachu with no condition to it, so it's just a straight 90. And it has a free retreat, so you can just switch it out, bring in the Articuno, and start swinging again. Don't think there's anything else to add really about Starmie. It's consistent because it doesn't rely on coin tosses. It doesn't rely on second stage Pokemon.
It kind of does, because Misty is your way of actually getting anything out of Articuno meaningfully.
Well, yeah, I suppose so. But I think it's more Articuno who relies on Misty than Starmie.
Yeah, so I think this is a kind of a difference between a deck that relies on coin flip and a deck that can run perfectly fine without them, but has potential bonuses to be gained from using them.
Yeah, like you can win in one turn with Misty, so that can make a big difference. Okay, so yeah, Mewtwo EX and Gardevoir, very, very popular at the moment. It won not this Saturday, the Saturday before, I believe. I think so. Or well, it's just a very consistent deck. You've got Mewtwo that basically starts one-shotting everything once Gardevoir is online, and with 2 energy, it's dealing 50 damage, which is a lot. And it has a nice 150.
Yeah, I was going to say 50 damage is actually a very important number, because with Giovanni, that hits 60, sorry, which will KO most evolving basics. So you roll, you Staryu, just trying to think, like Blitzel, Charmander, so on and so forth. If they've not found a way to evolve their Pokemon by the time you've got an attach and a Giovanni, that can really set you back.
Yeah. So that's basically, what makes this deck so good is Mewtwo, and the fact that if you get Gardevoir online, it's basically game. It's very hard, if not impossible, for your opponent to stop you once Gardevoir comes online, because you're just throwing out 150 base attacks, and depending on how early on in the game it is, there's nothing you can do about that. So very consistent. Most deck lists I've seen just run 2 Mewtwo and 2 of the Gardevoir line. Sometimes they throw in a Jinx or a Farfetch'd or something else, but I think the one that won the tournament, it was just straight up 2 Mewtwo and 2 of the Gardevoir line, and that's it. Yeah.
Basically, the only thing really holding this back is the difficulty of actually getting an evolution line out, especially a stage 2-1.
Yeah. Which is why
If you had a Pokeball equivalent for a stage 1 or stage 2, this would be significantly more powerful. I think it'd be completely undisputed as a top deck.
Oh yeah, 100%, definitely. But at the moment, because we don't have that, I'm going to place it as the worst of the top decks.
Yes.
Okay, so now things are going to start getting a bit murkier and a lot more subjective. So the top of A tier, I mean, honestly, they might not be ordered now, but for me, going off of the current, the latest tournaments, Rapidash Ninetales with Blaine is a very, very consistent deck, and it's something to look out for. So the way this works is Ninetales and Rapidash both get a boost of 30 damage from Blaine, and because they're both first stage Pokemon, it's very easy to get them out quickly and just start racking up damage. So basically the whole point is just quickly evolve Ponytail and Vulpix and start dealing damage. Kind of summed it all up there, Hoyle. I don't know if you want to add anything to that?
I mean, I just want to add my smugness at the fact that I sort of directed you towards Blaine build as a very easy to build free to play deck that was just going to be able to just get easy wins early in the meta.
Yeah, that's the point. This deck is very, very free to play friendly.
Like half of the deck is basically available as one of the starter decks, and then you just find the Ninetales and the Blaines and the other sort of train cards involved.
Yeah, and that's it.
And then you've got a deck, and it's sort of, you don't have to rely on pulling an EX.
Yeah, and
so you know it's a lot more accessible for free to play.
Yeah, and it's important to point out that last week they held a little league or little legends league, which basically no EX allowed, and the Blaine deck won that tournament because it is easily one of the...
That is by far the best deck that isn't an EX deck, but also when you remove other EXs from the equation, the numbers that you can do with a Ninetales and Blaine, there's very little that's going to stop that.
Yeah, but it can actually hold its own against the Pikachu EX because Ninetales one-shots the Pikachu. So
yeah,
it's depending on who goes first, who goes second, luck of the draw. you can actually beat a Pikachu EX deck. So it's a very good deck. What's holding it back? What do you think holds it back, Hoyle, from being like top?
So I think there's kind of a mix of a couple of little things, like, so it's gonna, so the downside of the attack of the Ninetales is you have to discard an energy. So to attack it with it again next turn, you have to attach to the same Ninetales again, and you can't then put an energy on, bench Ninetales or Vulpix to then have that ready for when the active one is knocked out. It can, you have to sort of switch to a Rapidash, spend a turn with attacking with that, while waiting to get the other thing back online. And Rapidash is kind of a lot better early game than a mid game, because obviously 40 with Blaine boost is good against evolving basics, but against an EX it's not going to do anything.
Yeah, that's true. I also think,
and then
one of the issues,
also the sort of,
I was going to say,
there's also the complication of the fact that they are stage 1s, is that finding those, there are just going to be games where you just don't see them.
Yeah.
That is, or you see the wrong one. You have your Ponyta and a Ninetales, and it's like, this does nothing for me.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to say Ninetales, only having 90 HP is also an issue, because, like I said before, Ninetales can one-hit KO Pikachu with a Blaine, but Pikachu can also just one-shot it, as can Starmie. Well, Starmie...
Yeah, 90 does seem to be a key number.
Yeah. So that also affects it quite a lot, because you've got Mewtwo doing 50 damage, so that's a 2-hit KO.
2-shot on both.
Yeah. So I think that's definitely one of the issues holding the deck back. But still, can be very good.
Also, the fact that you can just lose incredibly easy to an Articuno, because if it hits Misty on its first turn, it doesn't even need to hit 3 energy. It only needs 2 to just get KOs on you.
Yeah, but I think that
for Vulpix and Ponyta.
I think that applies to every deck, though. Because if Articuno gets the coin flip with Misty, then it's basically just GG.
So so Articuno requires less successful coin flips to beat this deck than it would others,
right?
Because it hits the weakness that increases the first attack into a KO, rather than needing to attack with the second attack.
Right. Okay, fair point. All right then. So moving on now. Okay, the next two. I think I'm going to say next in line is Moltres and Charizard.
Yeah, makes sense.
Because, so basically the idea with Moltres and Charizard is you bring out Moltres, start Inferno Dancing, build up one of your Charmanders, and then once that evolves to Charizard, you basically just one-shot everything again. Like, there's not a single card in the game that can take a Crimson Storm. But obviously, what holds this deck back? Well, it relies on a second stage Pokemon, and it's very susceptible to interruption, because if you're only playing Moltres and Charizard, if you have your Moltres out and just the one Charmander, then you can get Sabrina'd, the opponent knocks out the Charmander, and your whole win condition is just over.
Yeah. So one thing with this is that basically the reason it's not a top tier deck is it requires a lot of energy, it requires discarding. So in order to get 2 attacks off to probably win, because you're not actually doing any damage with Moltres, you kind of have to overcharge it a little bit too much, which when you're charging it with a coin flip, actually getting to do can be incredibly difficult.
Yeah, I've seen...
Like, yes, you can take 2 points from KOing something with your 200 damage, but where does that leave you? Have you made enough progress charging up with the energy before you've made the attack that you can do a second one, or are you suddenly going to have to, stall a turn?
Yeah, and another a big issue is, so if you knock out the Moltres, if your Moltres gets knocked out, you're giving up 2 points, and then also it's the coin flips. I've seen so many Moltres EX just flip 3 tails, and that's it. You're not progressing whilst your opponent is. So that's definitely a big issue.
Yep.
Okay.
Coin flips is going to be a common theme of decks as we go on. It's like, oh yeah, this would be really good. Everything goes right. Yeah. But it's not going to, because half your games it's just not. It just can't.
Exactly. Okay. So speaking of coin flips, I think the next deck on the list is Sandslash and Marowak. What do you think about that, Hoyle?
So I've only seen a couple of these when doing the streams with you, and it's a coin flip deck. I'm sure there's one game that you streamed where your opponent got 6 or 7 tails in a row, and 1 heads would have won them the game.
Yeah, I think,
and it's just going to happen. You can't have a consistent deck that can win, a tournament, because over the course of the tournament you're going to face lots of opponents, and your luck's just going to balance out. The coin flip's just going to go horribly in a pivotal moment.
Yeah,
just it might be fine for ranked ladder sort of thing, especially when you're sort of bullying a Pikachu, which is, of the EX based decks, probably one of the easier ones to get, because you only need 2 Pikachu. You can then just throw in whatever electric rubbish you pull, and have a rudimentary one. You don't have to pull like an Articuno and a Starmie. You don't have to then find the full Gardevoir line, and so on. It's a relatively accessible one. So you can try and rely on bullying it with a Marowak, which is accessible through free to play because of it's one of the
it's one of the starter
decks, isn't it?
Yeah. So yeah, there's a theme there. Like, as you go down the tier list, decks rely on the coin flips. I think one of the Pokemon, like the card that carries this deck, is actually Sandslash, because 70 damage at a 2 cost, pretty good. And especially if you're coming up against electric decks, then you're just one-shotting everything that isn't Pikachu. Which I think is why this deck is actually so popular, because obviously when you look at a meta, you've got what's popular and then whatever counters that, and things kind of go in a cycle, right? So because Pikachu is so popular...
Absolutely. Like, the moment that Pikachu starts being the best deck in format, this deck disappears, and chances are that it will, like, Pikachu will fall off through power creep or the release of a better fighting type than this.
Yeah, because at the moment it's pretty much the only viable fighting type deck, really. I don't think there's anything else to add to that. Pretty much just get out Sandslash and Marowak and start swinging. So, next up on the list, I think, and we're talking B tier, I think it's going to have to be Venusaur.
What about the 18 train Articuno?
Oh, yeah. Okay, so unfortunately... Hello, cat. There's no other Articuno card on this list, right? No. Okay, so... Yeah, 18 trainer Articuno. I think that's definitely... definitely worthy of being on B tier, because if it's not coming up against an electric type deck, then it's easy. It's just start swinging and that's it.
it is the coin flip thing, and it is a bit more than coin flips because you have to sort of open Misty in your hand, which the odds are roughly 2 in 19.
You'd be surprised how often I opened Misty.
Well, 2 in 19, and then it sort of yeah. But it's sort of this situation that when things go, you just win. And like, there's nothing your opponent can do about it. You win before they get a turn. And then there's oftentimes that because you've played this deck to guarantee that you have the EX you want in the active from the very start, you at least have some kind of advantage.
Yeah.
It's just the problem of you will run into matchups where you haven't seen Misty or you flip tails immediately and you're just taking a bit of time and your opponent's just got their good setup happening. You've lost, but that's kind of the exchange for the games where you just go off and you win.
Yeah.
Like similar to the Marowak, where over the course of a tournament your luck will balance out and it can't win a tournament. It just isn't statistically possible. But in a ladder thing, to play lots of games in quick succession, it can probably do a decent job.
Yeah.
So if the thing about the stamina system's true, it's absolutely ruined.
I think the stamina thing it only applies to events, so hopefully that's the case. But yeah, I forgot to mention. So basically, the 18 train Articuno is just that. It's the 2 Articuno EX, and then all the rest are trainers. Yeah, and like as Hoyle said, you can fight. You can also encounter like you don't get the other Articuno, so they basically knock out your Articuno and you get benched, isn't it? That's what you call it, because you didn't draw the other one. And
bench out. Yeah.
Bench out. Yeah. So, but even still, it's a pretty solid deck, to be honest, because of like the HP, and just how quickly you can start swinging. So yeah, I don't think there's anything else to add.
And then there's Venusaur monstrosity you wanted to talk about.
Yeah, so then you got Venusaur EX and Exeggutor EX, or just regular Exeggutor. So this deck actually won a tournament as well. It was running 2 of the Venusaur line, and then 1 Exeggutor EX and 1 regular Exeggutor. No, 2 regular Exeggutor, because you can run two regular and 1 EX. And yeah, that won the tournament. That actually beat a Mewtwo in the final. But once again, I think
I don't understand how.
The player's called Nothing But Bangers. He's a YouTuber. I think he went second in all of his last remaining matches, so that helped. And he got a bit lucky with the coin flips as well. But he also, I think he had a lucky matchup. He did actually have to beat a Charizard deck to make it to the final. I think he got a Charizard deck in the semis or quarterfinals, but he did manage to beat it. But that's the thing, when you've got Exeggutor flipping either 40 or 80 every turn, that damage starts to rack up. But essentially, what Venusaur EX and Exeggutor, what Venusaur EX aims to do is you bring out Exeggutor as a beefy wall, start setting up Venusaur, and then once Venusaur gets online, it's very, very hard to kill because, like I mentioned earlier, 190 HP, its attack does 100 damage, and it recovers 30, coupled with Erica, which lets it heal 50, and then potions, and then Sabrina, you can start disrupting your opponent. It becomes a huge uphill battle. But its issue is setting up Venusaur.
Yeah, because you need 4 energy and the sort of 2 extra turns to evolve. So even when you get a Venusaur in play, if you've done that as fast as possible, it still can't attack. Like, there's no way that it can attack on the first turn that a Venusaur can possibly come into play. You still need a couple more turns of the game to pass, and that's if you've got the Venusaur in play as fast as possible.
Yeah. So that's
it's a bit too slow, and you're basically relying on Exeggutor needs to buy enough time.
Yeah.
And if you've got a deck like Pikachu, that's going to put up enough pressure that I don't think Venusaur can buy enough time.
No, definitely not. I still like it. I think the regular Exeggutor does a pretty good job of like tanking hits, and because it's not the EX, it's only giving away 1 point, so it has that going for it. But still, it's the whole getting Venusaur online that's the issue.
Yeah, I honestly think you put Venusaur too high in this tier list.
You think so? Do you think so? I mean, could drop it.
Yeah.
Let's drop it to C then for now.
There's 2 or 3 decks I think. There's a couple of decks I think that can go ahead of it.
Okay, that's interesting. Well, yeah, I'm fine with dropping it to C because it's not that popular on ladder either. So next up, it's not as clear. Okay, actually, maybe Alakazam. But I think Alakazam is C as well. Okay, so let's just not go in order anymore.
I have opinions on this because this is one of the few decks I've actually played.
Okay.
And it's a really nice thing that it can one-hit KO everything.
Yeah.
But it's too reliant on your opponent and it's too slow.
Yeah, so there was an Alakazam deck that got top 8 in the tournament on Saturday, although it wasn't the Alakazam Weezing version. It was Alakazam and Kangaskhan and friends. Let's see if I got it somewhere here. I don't think so. I didn't load it. Okay. Or is it this one? Oh yeah, it was Alakazam with Greninja. Okay, so it was two of Alakazam line, 2 Greninja, and 1 Kangaskhan. Which I don't know how he did so well, because that seems just like way too much.
Yeah, that like it just. I was kind of explaining this on Discord the other day of the idea of 2 stage 2s in the same deck that actually functions is such a rare concept in the physical TCG where you've got 60 cards worth of space. It's only a thing currently because of the specific stage 2s that are available and cards like Rare Candy that enable them to be skipped in. You don't have to worry about the middle stage, and there's so much like search potential for the Rare Candy and the Pokemon. I was like, this doesn't exist in TCG Pocket. How can you run 2 stage 2s and hope to get both of them in play?
Yeah,
it just sort of baffles.
Yeah, no. When I saw his list, I was just shocked. I was like, how have you managed to do that? Because it just seems too much. Like, how did you get away with all that? But no, he came fourth, so obviously it worked. I think the Weezing variant might be a bit better because Weezing does a better job at not giving up points and stalling, and because Alakazam only needs the 1 Psychic Energy, you can actually run Dark Energy and Psychic Energy, so you can actually attack with Weezing as well, which always helps. But yeah, I actually want to try out the Alakazam deck. That was one of the decks I was planning on playing on stream with you, so we can give that a go on Friday perhaps. But anyway, moving on. So let's see, who else have we got here? So okay, how about
Arbok?
Yeah, Arbok, Pidgeot. Where are you thinking of putting that? I reckon C tier because lacking on damage output, I think.
I rate it more. I rate it more than Venusaur.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Because B tier is currently so poorly defined, I think it could actually be B tier.
It could.
Like I think this is. I think this is B tier.
Okay, bottom of B tier, perhaps. Yeah. Yeah. So the way Arbok and Pidgeot works is Arbok, its attack traps your opponent. And Pidgeot has an ability where it forces your opponent to switch. So what you do is you force your opponent to switch, then you attack it with Arbok. They're trapped, they can't switch out, and depending on what Pokemon they had benched, either it has no energy so it can't retaliate, or you can actually kill it and get a point. So it's a good strategy. Obviously, what holds it back? It's another 2-stage. But yeah. and I think another issue is Arbok. The 60 damage is slightly just sometimes it's not enough. Same with Pidgeot. I don't know what are your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so the thing with the Arbok damage, I would say 60 basically means that, you know, other than things like Pikachu, it's more than a 2-hit KO. And in that time that you're, you know, slowly racking up this damage, they can actually build up enough energy attachments to attack and probably one-shot you.
Yeah, because Arbok only has the 100 HP. Yeah. But still, a pretty good deck. I like it. We played that on stream and it was fun. Okay. What's next? I mean, I'm not going to do all of these decks because some of them are just like random cards. Okay, let's talk about Dragonite. Let's talk about Dragonite.
Yeah.
Dragonite is an iconic card. It's an iconic Pokemon, but at the moment, it's just not good enough. It's a 2-stage card, and it takes a lot of setup. It requires multiple energies, which the way Pokemon Pocket works at the moment, it's random. Like, there's no way to set up your energies. Like, you can't alternate or anything like that. It's completely random. So you might just get 6 water energies in a row, or 6 electric energies in a row. It's just random. Its attack is also random. Like, you can't choose where you want to do the damage because it just does 50 damage to all the bench Pokemon. Well, it selects Pokemon that are on the active and benched, and then does 50 damage. So you might end up doing 200 damage to a basic Pokemon that has 50 HP. So that's also a big issue, a huge issue actually. And then it's the whole, how do you stall long enough to set up the Dragonite? So I've been using the Dragonite Wheezing, which is a lot more successful than all the other variants, because as we saw on my streams, all the other variants just sucked. Because the good thing about Wheezing is it doesn't allow you to give away points. You can use Koga, bring it back to your hand, and you haven't given up a point. Whereas all the other decks, you have to sacrifice something. And you have to use energy, which you want to attach to Dragonite. You have to attach it to them so they can at least do something. And you're just slowing down your whole strategy. And that's what makes Dragonite bad, basically. And it's sad.
Yeah, I love it unconditionally.
So do I.
What the attack is. I think it's such a unique thing, but it is kind of bad.
Yeah.
It is kind of bad. I have to admit it. I don't want to, but I do.
It's sad because, like I said, Dragonite's just iconic and it's cool, but it's hard to make it work. When it does work, it feels amazing, but that feeling doesn't happen often. Okay, I'm not sure now if there's actually anything really worthy of being put on the tier list, because a lot of these Pokemon are just, they exist, but I don't think there's enough like not enough people actually run them, or there's not enough support to talk about them.
So the other things to consider, I think, are other Pidgeot builds. I don't know what else it partners with, but I think Pidgeot itself is just a very good card.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I also really like Ninja as a card, but I don't think that's seeing any play at the minute.
well, it is like because, like I said, it was paired with the Alakazam deck. I think Greninja's just good to. You can throw it in with any water deck, so you can play like Starmie Greninja Articuno or Articuno Greninja. It's quite versatile in any water deck, so I don't really think you'd play it as your key mon. It's usually just there to support because of Water Shuriken. You know, it damages your opponent's bench Pokemon, so you can start building up, like racking up that damage. But I don't really think your whole like strategy is based on Greninja. It's usually something and Greninja.
Yeah.
And then you've got Mark and Wheezing, but I think the issue with Mark is okay. So Wheezing poisons your opponent. You then use Kogar, switch in the Mark, and the Mark does, I think it's like 130. It's a ridiculous amount of damage. But then your opponent brings in their other Pokemon. It's not poisoned. You're doing 70 damage, and that's it. Like you're one off.
And you can't retreat out of that.
Yeah,
because it has such a heavy cost.
Well, you can use Koga to retreat, but then you're removing the 3 energy, which is a lot, and then you're just slowing yourself down again. So, I don't really think it's. You can't even be put on the tier list, to be honest.
No,
it's just a one-off gimmick. Like you'll get 1 kill with it, and that's it.
I mean, the other considerations are something like Frosmoth Hypno, just for the most abominable coin flip stall.
Yeah. So you compare these two, and then just try and sleep stall your opponent. But once again, that's relying on coin flips, so you could just lose. Not really nothing special there. Then you got Nido Queen, Nido King, which is one of the decks the computer uses. Once again, it's not that great because three cost attack, and it's a second stage. So
and you need 2 stage 2s.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just too much. It's too much, and at the moment, everything else is a lot faster. So that's not great.
I think this is going to be a common issue. Is that actually a lot of when you have if you get a card that would improve a deck like that, it would improve other decks more. So those kind of decks are just never gonna be able to keep up.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna just bring out some cards to talk about now. Okay, so Gengar EX, basically the same issues as always. It's a second stage, and it's got a really good ability. It stops your opponent from using supporter cards, but once again, it's a setup, and I don't think.
I think the bigger issue is more that the damage that the Gengar does isn't worth the setback that it causes your opponent with the ability.
Yeah. 100 damage, but I think by the time the Gengar EX comes out, it's going to take a big hit from something, I imagine. And then, it's kind of like, okay, so you've done all that, but now you're about to give up 2 points. I don't know. If we get support for like second stage decks, then it could definitely become viable. But at the moment, it's not. Same with Melmetal. Melmetal's really cool because its ability allows it to take... So damage is reduced by 20. And it does like... What is that, 120? I'll get the card on screen. I think it's 120. So it does a decent amount of damage, but it takes a lot of setup.
There is worth mention of the Meltan has the mass attack to get an extra energy attached to itself.
Which can true. Kind of that's true.
Offset that, but it sort of, while you're using the Meltan to attack to build up its energy, it itself is very vulnerable.
Yeah.
And we currently just don't have many metal type cards in the game. There's not even a support that does anything to help them. It's a very isolated type at the minute. I think something good could come of Meltan in the future when there is new support.
Right. But at the moment, it's not good for the metal theme. Okay, Golems. So I came up against the Golem deck the other day, and I was like, wow, this is really cool, because it was basically it was Wheezing with Golem, and it was pure dark, like only dark energy, because Golem only requires the one fire type energy. And they used Brock to attach the energy to it, and I was like, wow, that's a cool strat. And then I realized that Double Edge does like 30 damage to Golem. So I was like, oh, okay, that recall's a bit heavy, it's a bit much. And it's obviously, once again, a second stage Pokemon. But
yeah,
that was a cool strategy. I like that. I thought it was original, but that recall damage, it ruins it. Because otherwise, doing straight up 150 damage, that's ridiculous. Is it 150? Yeah, 150. It's like, wow. You know, you're one-shotting most things in the game.
Yeah.
And then Machamp EX. So Machamp EX suffers once again from being a second stage and being an EX with only 100 oh no, that's 180, right? Not 130. 180. I just think, yeah, the issue is it's too slow.
It's a 3 energy attack as well. It's a bit much.
Yeah, 120. So other EXs are going to be able to take at least one. So yeah, I don't think I've seen one Machamp EX, and I was playing Dragonite, and I took the hit, and then I revenge killed it with Draco Meteor. I was like, wow, Dragonite actually won. So yeah, not great.
That just shows that it shouldn't be on the tier list.
Yeah, definitely not. Articuno EX, just not good, to be honest. I mean, it takes recall damage. You have opinions about Arcanine?
I actually want to kind of defend. I do have opinions about Arcanine because so obviously in the starter deck stuff, you do get an Arcanine EX, and because I've been quite lucky in pulling 3 bloody Moltres, I have had the sort of experience of, at least in the solo mode, playing Moltres, charging up an Arcanine. It's like a baby Charizard.
Okay.
It's a stage 1 with less energy, but obviously the number's lower. And so it is just sort of a lesser Charizard deck, and I think it's respectable for that. I don't think the recoil damage is necessarily too impactful until you've attacked 2 or 3 times, at which point you've done a decent amount of damage.
Yeah.
Like, I don't hate it. I think as far as it's the sort of thing that if you're building a Charizard deck, you can play this in the meantime.
Right. Okay. Speaking of Moltres and Charizard, you then have Scorch, which is also kind of like a baby Charizard. And I think, to be honest,
Yeah,
I think Scorch
is a very similar sort of idea.
Yeah. The only issue is obviously the discarding again from using the attack. Yeah, that's a shame.
Yeah.
Because if it didn't have to discard, then it would be pretty good.
I prefer the recoil damage to the discard.
Yeah.
At
Definitely.
least in terms of these baby Charizards.
Yeah, unfortunate for Scorch, but because of that, it's not on the tier list. And then Blastoise EX, I think that could actually stay in D tier, you know.
I mean, the fact that Venusaur made it onto the tier list, I don't hate Blastoise being in the bottom tier.
Yeah, because once again, it's coin flips because you're relying on Misty, but you can pair it up with Articuno or Starmie or, well, not really anything else. Probably has to be Articuno. But yeah, you can pair it up with that and then start building it up, and its attack does 160 once you have the 5 energy. That's obviously one of the big issues. It needs 5 energy to do the max amount of damage, and you need to get it on field. But I don't hate it. I just think it's too slow.
Yeah.
I mean, you can definitely get out the Blastoise and do 100 damage, but the 160, it's whole other story. Okay, I think that's pretty much it, right? We've covered the important stuff. Don't think any of these other cards really deserve too much talk about them. I mean, Wigglytuff,
Dog Trio, coin flip time.
Yeah. So Wigglytuff maybe, because that puts your opponent to sleep, but once again it's still coin flips. Poliwrath does damage when you attack it, like it counters that, does 20 I think. But nah, it's not that great. Victreebel's an interesting card because you can bring in one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. And there was a guy who...
Yeah, so this is actually the actual gusting effect that we're used to in the physical TCG that is just infinitely better than Sabrina.
Yeah.
It's just the fact that it's restricted to the active and it's like 60 damage.
Yeah. And it's
you can't actually get to do much with it.
Yeah, so you can actually... Was it paired up with... Well, pair it up with Pidgeot would seem a bit silly. But
no, that would be completely redundant.
Yeah. Ignore me. But still, it's cool. Interesting ability, just on Victreebel, like, that only does 60 damage. It's not great.